One of the most interesting lingering plot threads from Game of Thrones that was never satisfyingly resolved is the introduction of time travel into the world of Ice and Fire. The brutal death of Hodor and the even more brutal realization that Bran was the one who made Hodor into Hodor in the first place was a shocking revelation. But what was ultimately even more shocking was the fact that time travel seemingly had no greater influence on the story that Game of Thrones told. And it seems extraordinarily unlikely that the same will be said about A Song of Ice and Fire. There have been some great theories bandied about regarding Bran's potential influence on the historical narrative of Westeros. But after the introduction of Aegon's prophecy, another plausible possibility seemed to emerge. It seems quite believable that Bloodraven is at the center of the time travel narrative in A Song of Ice and Fire, and it's actually possible that he is the architect of the entire Targaryen invasion and dynasty. Dreams, prophecies, and visions of the future are obviously a powerful cornerstone of the world of Ice and Fire. And one of the primary questions regarding them has always been, where are these visions actually coming from? In a traditional fantasy story, it's not hard to believe that the Chosen Ones are being sent visions from some kind of deity. But given George R. R. Martin's subversive writing tendencies, it looks extremely unlikely that these prophecies or dreams are coming from any godlike figure. So, if we're to assume that these visions have a more pedestrian source, like one of the many magic users within the world of Planetos, then it also stands to reason that there are probably different sources at play. I.e., there are different magic users sending visions to different characters to push and pull them into the directions that they want them to go. And clearly, Bloodraven has already been very active when it comes to interfering with the minds of others. So logically, there must be people within his sphere of influence beyond what readers have seen in the narrative thus far. Undeniably, it's a considerable mental leap from Bloodraven influencing others to becoming the architect of the entire Targaryen dynasty. But based on his characterization and greater context clues, it's really not as hard to believe as it might seem at first glance. One of the most interesting unanswered questions in the broader lore of A Song of Ice and Fire is simply, what connects the Targaryens to the incoming ice threat? Yes, there is some obvious symmetry with the Targaryens controlling a great fire force and the threat being cold. But the ice threat has been defeated before, and the Targaryens had nothing to do with it. So the notion that they would be the linchpin in destroying or ameliorating the others is bizarre. Although Jon is a Targaryen and is very closely connected to the coming danger, he doesn't even know he is a Targaryen, and his Targaryenness seems to have no real impact on his relationship to the White Walkers. And, while Daenerys is consistently being mystically pushed towards Westeros, the thread linking her to the ice threat is tenuous at best. At this point, the only real connection is that she seems to be poised to invade around the time that the Northern Storm will be coming south. So, if we're to assume that George R. R. Martin mentioned Aegon's prophecy to the creators of House of the Dragon for a specific reason, which seems likely, then it is presumably relevant to the story of House Targaryen going forward. Ergo, the question becomes, why is it important, and who put that idea into Aegon the Conqueror's head in the first place? Based on process of elimination alone, the number of characters that exist within the world of Ice and Fire who would be capable of doing something like that and would be aware of the looming ice threat coming a few centuries after Aegon's conquest is very few. And the people who would seemingly want to maneuver the Targaryens in the direction of Westeros in preparation for that threat seems to be even fewer. In terms of characters that the audience actually knows who would have the power to do something like this and the desire to do it, Bloodraven is really the only present logical option who has the motive, means, and opportunity to do it. The impact and influence of Bloodraven is interesting and I think often misunderstood. I think that he, like many other characters who are considered masterminds of the series, are taking stabs in the dark far more often than they would like anyone to believe. When it comes to Bloodraven, although nothing has been outright confirmed within the books themselves, there seems to be a considerable amount of subtext indicating that he has made many mystical and political attempts to influence the realm, and he has done so to middling success. Although Bloodraven has not been a corporeal presence in the story up until extremely recently, one of his first lessons to Bran is also the most interesting within the context of his potential impact on the broader narrative timeline. In A Dance with Dragons, Bran III, Bloodraven explains, "Those were shadows of days past that you saw, Bran. You were looking through the eyes of the heart tree in your godswood. Time is different for a tree than for a man. Sun and soil and water, these are the things a weirwood understands, not days and years and centuries. For men, time is a river. We are trapped in its flow, hurtling from past to present, always in the same direction. The lives of trees are different. They root and grow and die in one place, and that river does not move them. The oak is the acorn is the oak. 1,000 human years are a moment to a weirwood, and through such gates you and I may gaze into the past. But, said Bran, he heard me. He heard a whisper on the wind, a rustling amongst the leaves. You cannot speak to him, try as you might. I know. I have my own ghosts, Bran. A brother that I loved, a brother that I hated, a woman I desired. Through the trees I see them still, but no word of mine has ever reached them. The past remains the past. We can learn from it, but we cannot change it. Of course, it's entirely possible that Bloodraven is telling the absolute truth here, and that he is under the impression that the past can't be changed. But it is incredibly bizarre to teach Bran how to use the Weirwood network and immediately tell him that affecting the past is impossible, when Bran seems to see for himself that that's not the case. There are a few options regarding what's truly going on here. 1, that Bloodraven genuinely believes that the past can't be changed. 2, that he knows it's possible to alter the past, but that he knows it's dangerous and therefore doesn't want Bran to even attempt to do it. Or 3, he knows it's possible and doesn't want Bran to do it because he himself is doing it and he doesn't want anyone to interfere with his plans. And of course, Bran is an exceptionally powerful magic user, but the fact that he seems to almost immediately have an effect on the past as soon as he learns how to use the Weirwood network would indicate that not only can the previous timeline be altered, but that it's actually quite easy to do so. Considering that Bloodraven is a veritable expert in green seeing, it's hard to believe that he's unaware of this. And given his penchant for playing chess master with the Game of Thrones, it's also hard to believe that he wouldn't use that ability to his advantage. So, not only does Bloodraven almost certainly have the knowledge and capability to change the past, he is also essentially the #1 stan of House Targaryen in all of human history. Despite being a Targaryen and Blackwood bastard, he devoted his life in the Seven Kingdoms to ensuring that the Targaryen dynasty was not threatened by outsiders. And his loyalty to the Targaryens specifically seems a bit odd. Or at least it did without the potential context of Bloodraven believing that a Targaryen king on the Iron Throne was necessary to prevent Westeros from falling into another long night. A consistent theme within George R. R. Martin's work is that prophecies and powers aren't often important because of what they are, but because of how people interpret them and use them. Bloodraven clearly felt that the Targaryens were worth fighting for. And while it's possible that he changed his mind, it's also possible that he became more devoted to the cause as time went on and the ice threat loomed larger. Bloodraven is also exceptionally talented at interfering with people's dreams in order to maneuver them in the direction that he wants them to go. And given how far he's gone to turn Bran into his acolyte, it would honestly be surprising if he hasn't done just as much or more in order to influence other people that he thinks are a vital part of the future of Westeros. Of course, it's entirely possible that the purpose of introducing time travel revolves around Bran Stark, and there are a lot of theories that are interesting and believable relating to Bran being the beginning and end of a time loop in the world of Ice and Fire. But I'm a bit suspicious of this notion, specifically because of Hodor. From a broader perspective, introducing time travel has to be more important than just Hodor. But from Bran's perspective, it's hard to imagine him experimenting further with time travel and trying to change the past, when he essentially destroys someone that he cares deeply about when doing it before. All of the Stark children seem to have their own dark mentors that offer them something tempting. But it also looks like they're ultimately going to walk away from those temptations because they realize that they don't lead anywhere good. Bloodraven seems to play that role for Bran, so it looks likely that Bran will eventually turn away from the seductive nature of the powers that Bloodraven has. Even if Bran continues to lean into his mystical side, the entire role of Hodor in the narrative seems to be eroded if Bran continues to alter the past after destroying someone he loves. And therefore, the time travel twist probably has to apply to someone and something else. Bloodraven and the Targaryen dynasty seems like the best option. There are many reasons why the Targaryens might have gone mad, inbreeding and entitlement being the most obvious. However, creating Hodor as a character and then having no other characters whose minds are broken by magical time-traveling interference would also be a surprise. So, it's plausible that Bran will learn a lesson from Hodor that Bloodraven should have learned but didn't from the Targaryens that he drove mad. Time travel is such an enormous plot device to introduce into the narrative that its purpose has to be applied to something equally as relevant. Given that House Targaryen looks to be ending before the conclusion of A Dream of Spring, there's definitely a dramatic poetry to having one of the last Targaryens, Bloodraven, be the one to give the invading Targaryen, Aegon, a prophecy that told him that the Targaryens were destined to save Westeros. And it would give the conclusion of the series a great deal of symmetry, closing a time loop that begins and ends with the Targaryen dynasty. Or, on the other hand, this could be completely wild speculation that has no basis in reality, and the entire concept of a prophecy driving Aegon to Westeros could be a massive misinterpretation on the part of House of the Dragon's writers. Perhaps Bran the Broken is also Bran the Builder, or maybe the relevance of time travel is something completely different. But it is possible, I think it makes sense, and I actually think that the Targaryen dynasty is a plot twist that's worthy of time travel. But what do you think? Is Bloodraven the architect of the Targaryen dynasty? Or does time travel in A Song of Ice and Fire serve another purpose? Leave your comments and opinions below, and if you're interested in more content like this, like and subscribe.